Native Alaskan culture is one that is based on the ability to live off the land and survive off subsistence. The idea of survival is being threatened by dramatic climate change that has occurred over the last couple of decades. For over a century, the Inupiat people have lived in the most northern part of Alaska. One of the communities in northern Alaska that they live in is next to a city called Barrow. The Inupiat have grown accustomed to the brutal elements that make up part of Alaska. The land is covered in permafrost and fails to have sun shine through the winter months. The Inupiat people have learned to survive by understanding the migration trends of the food they hunt. Caribou, fish, whales, and seals make up much of the food they need to survive. The hides of these animals are also used for clothing, shelter, and even trinkets to sell the local trading posts. The Inupiat communities set up whaling camps to station from while hunting. They set off in boats that are made from walrus hide from previous hunts. They believe one of the animals that they hunt most frequently is the bowhead whale. They believe it represents the most visible manifestation of their age-old culture remaining in the technological rush of today's generation. The Inupiat language has 20 different words for the bowhead whale, depending on how it's used. For example, there's a separate enunciation as a hunter spots a young male or a young female. They also have names for a fat male, entire family, or number of other indicators that could identify a bowhead whale. Traditionally, the waters off the shores of Barrow are significant migratory routes for bowhead whales. The annual passing happens from April through May as they move from northern part of the Bering Sea to the Canadian Arctic. The entire whale is used after the catch. The meat is used for traditional food and the importance of food preparation, but the bones are used in structural supports within the community. After a successful bowhead hunt, the community as a whole can be supported for months. Other animals of the sea are more than just food. Whale bones are used in building structures, jaw bones in sled runners, blubber can be turned into fuels, and some whale oils are used in traditional medicines. The Inupiat people use as much of their kill as possible to help the community and respect the animal. Whaling has been part of the Inupiat subsistence lifestyle for over 2,000 years. Hunting and fishing have spiritually developed the Inupiat for generations. These key values have crafted and passed down through generations to develop a sense of respect for the animal and their spirit. This has led the Inupiat to build a bond with nature and the environment that they live in. Whaling has impacted the Inupiat people so much that the U.S. Department of Agriculture has researched the food source and its impact on their community. The USDA estimates the average native Alaskan consumes more than 600 pounds of wildlife resources each year. This is about 430 pounds more fish, poultry, and meat consumed than the average U.S. citizen. Average trip to the local grocery store in Barrow can cost up to twice as much as in rural villages than in typical U.S. cities. This also supports the value of community. It has been shown that 90% of the village households share food in a more communal effort of living. One of the other hunting cornerstones in the Inupiat community is the polar bear. Polar bears are one of the most dangerous animals in Alaska. Although rare, it is thought that witnessing one of the great animals is too exciting to pass up for any visitor. With so much great meat gathered during the kill, what are the traditional methods that an Inupiat community use to preserve food? One of those traditions is they learn to make the most out of the environment, so the ice cellar becomes a household item. The ice cellars are vertical shafts within the permafrost that keep food from spoiling. The ice cellar has been used by the Inupiat for over 1,000 years. These cellars are generally built for two reasons: large community cellars and smaller cellars that are used for family food. Depending on the type of cellar being built, they consist of vertical shafts that lead to large chambers dug into the permafrost. These are more popular than the large community cellars because of the small styles that can hold hold the meat to feed each family. Once built, the larger chambers are where the meat can be stored until consumed or distributed to families. The Inupiat found other uses for the ice cellars too. Due to the fact that the temperature was found to stay approximately negative 11 degrees at 11 feet deep and negative 5 degrees at 5 feet, it could be used as a community morgue. This was especially helpful in the early 1900s. Study of ice cellars used in Barrow have shown that typical ice cellar shaft is 1 to 6 meters deep. The ceiling of the ice cellars are generally a half to 1 meter below the top layer of permafrost. Cellars are usually built to size desired, depending on the intended use of the cellar. The Inupiat built the cellars to support every stage of the kill. They are most commonly located near family homes and the hunting camps that they stage out of for the whale hunting. These chambers are generally filled with a pulley system that aid in the rising and lowering of the meat to allow more efficient use of time in preparing the storage and movement of the meat. The complete system used by Alaska Natives was adopted by researchers from the U.S. Navy Exploration Team in the Arctic Research Laboratory. A recent assessment report stated that an average Arctic temperature have increased at almost twice the global average rate in the past 100 years. The permafrost in Inupiat lands have raised significantly since 1970. This has taken a toll on the survivability of the community's use of the ice cellar. The external temperatures that surround the ice cellars have not significantly changed. However, the temperatures deep within the permafrost that make up the large rooms have been affected. The effect of this on the village ice cellars is the inability to maintain temperatures that keep food from spoiling. Recent observations have found that the increase in warmer seasonal weather have increased the amount of floods and erosion in northern locations across Alaska. When permafrost melts or fails to maintain the depth of a temperature in the land, it increases the likelihood of erosion. This, in turn, supports the ability of flooding due to runoff of melted snow, ice, or the composition of permafrost. One of the biggest concerns facing the future of the Inupiat people is the effect of climate change. The negative effects transform the environment, changing wildlife behavior and migration, altering coastal waters and ice, and disrupting the Inupiat's spiritual well-being. The Inupiat are extremely impacted by any change in the environment due to their reliance on it. Melting of the coastal sea ice due to warm weather happening earlier in the season can have significant cause and effect on the ability to sustain a whale hunt. The ability to maintain not only the option for killing during opportune seasonal time frames, but to maintain the amount of whales to continue the cultural activities that are associated with the whale keeps the community in peace and spiritual harmony. Whaling remains a centerpiece to many elders within the community. Along with food source, the traditional ceremonies that are associated with the whale are at risk of being lost as hunting starts to diminish. Risk and social environment, well-being across what is referred to as the Inupiat whaling cycle. This is the year-round material and cultural traditions that prepare the Inupiat for the hunt. However, one of the effects of the environmental impact of land, sea, and migration habits of wildlife could upset the cultural traditions of the community. These trends have forced the Inupiat to modify their harvesting strategies. Over the course of time, the environmental cues that hunters use to predict animal patterns have become less reliable due to climate change. With less hunting and harvesting success, the communities have found the need to use more store-bought food. This has proven to be costly in concerns of overall health insurance, and financial instabilities. One of the ways in which the outside world has attempted to help the wildlife in northern Alaska is by calling notice to the epidemic. In the early 2000s, the U.S. government put the polar bear on the threatened species list. Although many people outside native Alaskan communities consider this to be a good first step in helping the polar bear survive, many Inupiat people disagreed. The biggest cause for polar bear numbers to decrease is not so much the hunting as much as their habitat and their inability to sustain life. Big holes in the summer sea ice exist that was not there before, and this has greatly impacted their range and hunting ability. It is believed that by 2050, most of the Arctic Ocean will be ice freezing during the summer months. This leaves a possibility of two believed outcomes. The polar bears will adapt to land, or they will become extinct. Change in the climate causes great unrest within the Inupiat community. If bowhead whales change their migration paths or feeding waters, it goes against the whale-human relationship. According to the Inupiat story of creation, their land was a result of the death of a bowhead whale. The story relates the whale to the land and the land to the people. This respect for the hunt revitalizes the relationship and passion of the Inuit belief of the strength of the human-whale relationship. Embracing traditions through storytelling is believed to be a result of coping mechanisms for the Inupiat to deal with climate change. The Inupiat culture has been around for generations. They have been successful at adapting to the environment that most other populations would believe to be uninhabitable. Their ability to respect the environment, their hunting, and spiritual bond with nature is unique in today's technology-driven world. Their world coming under fire from a myriad of negative impacts, the land they hunt on, the wildlife they survive on, and even the manner in which they store their meat for the community and themselves is dissipating at a rapid pace. Harsh waste disposal and an inability to regulate industrial byproduct has caused climate change that is melting the Arctic environment, changing everything from ice cellars to polar bear habitat. The Inuit people have learned to survive and adapt to extreme Arctic landscapes. As they move forward as a culture, they will again be forced to adapt if things don't change. The problem doesn't lie with the Inuit changing for the better, but with the world around them learning to respect the land, environment, and each other in the same manner as the Inuit people.